1997, Carlos Lozada Quirino became the first Filipino to be proclaimed National Artist for Historical Literature. It was a new category created by President Fidel V. Ramos that seemed to have been tailor-fitted to accommodate Carlos Quirino. It caused quite a stir in the local cultural and artistic community.
Many people were objecting when I suggested that he be National Artist in Literature, but I cited that there are many historians that have been given the Nobel Prize Award in Literature because of their historical writing, because it is a form of literature.
Let me tell you a story about the proclamation of Carlos Quirino as a national artist for historical literature. At the time that the decision was made by President Ramos, it's very typical among artistic and cultural circles in this country. There was a gigantic debate. But I went to that ceremony in Malacañang Palace when the proclamation was made. One of the most inspiring sights I have ever seen was the fact that when that proclamation was made, all of the other national artists, the existing national artists, some of them who had even been at the forefront of questioning the decision to honor Carlos Quirino in that manner, were there, and they all welcomed him into the fold.
My father was 87 years old when he was conferred a National Artist Award by President Fidel V. Ramos. And there was one word he uttered when he received it, and that was wonderful. Although he was almost senile at that time, he knew it was an important award. And he felt good about it. And the family was very proud of him. But it was something that he did not pursue, meaning awards. He just focused on his work, and eventually he was recognized for that.
An eminent historian and much sought-after biographer, Carlos Quirino's body of work covered virtually every subject on Philippine history and culture. His biography of Jose Rizal, entitled The Great Malayan, is recognized as one of the earliest written on the Philippine national hero. Quirino is known to have written more biographies than any other Filipino writer. Aside from his book on Rizal, he also did the biographies of Emilio Aguinaldo, Manuel L. Quezon, Ramon Magsaysay, Elpidio Quirino, Jose P. Laurel, Eloyo Rodriguez Sr., Charles Chick Parsons, Ramon Durano, Vicente Madrigal, and many other commissioned works that have remained unpublished.
We started Tahanan Books for Young Readers. We incorporated the company in 1991. We started hunting around for authors, primarily history teachers, journalists, published historians. And of course, you know, one of the big names that cropped up in those days was the venerable Carlos Quirino. Tahanan produced 4 of his books over the course of the next, I would say, the next 6 years. And he was as prolific as his publishers wanted him to be. In fact, he had so many tricks in his hat. You know, he kept telling me about all these other manuscripts that he had written that he was waiting, you know, to see the light of day.
Carlos Quirino actually gained his first notoriety as a biographer, for which he later on became significantly known, was for writing Quezon Man of Destiny before World War II. It was one of the earliest biographies and one of the few contemporary biographies written about Manuel L. Quezon. He represents the writer who was able to synthesize and make intimate and yet respectable their coverage of political and historical events. Without, and this is the other thing, without being too partisan. The tendency in Philippine biographical writing, at the very least, is there's a very fine line between admiring your subject, the person you choose to write a book about, and becoming a propagandist for that figure. He managed to avoid that, and I think that remains a very important model.
He received commissions, but that did not stop him from writing honestly. And he was someone who could take it on the chin. He was tough.
Indeed, strength of character was one trait that Carlos Quirino developed early on in life. Christened Carlos Felix Quirino, he was born January 14, 1910. The second of two sons of the brilliant gynecologist, Dr. Jose Quirino, and the former Dolores Lozada. His older brother, born on the same day 3 years earlier, was named Felix Vicente. Carlos was 2 months short of his 4th birthday when he lost his father in a tragic car accident in Antipolo, Rizal. In his unfinished autobiography, aptly titled A Biographer's Autobiography, Carlos Quirino wrote, "My earliest memory of the family was the tragic death of my father, indelibly etched in my memory. It was as a young student at the De La Salle, where he completed his grade school and high school, that Carlos Quirino developed a fondness for reading books, beginning with paperback dime novels ordered from the U.S. through a friend. In high school, he began to read adventure books like those of Italian-American novelist Rafael Sabatini, which he said fired his imagination. Later, he began to read William Shakespeare, notably Hamlet and The Merchant of Venice. He said it was during this time that he began to appreciate how rich and sonorous English could be as a language. But not even his fondness for books could confine the young Carlos Quirino indoors. Of the many feathers on Carlos Quirino's cap, one was of an excellent sportsman. He wrote about taking up track and field at the De La Salle and of many family vacations spent at the beach, where he and brother Felix learned to become good swimmers.
I believe my father's attraction to the outdoors started when he was an Eagle Scout as a student in La Salle. And I think this is what attracted him to the sports. No? He started off as a marksman, a sharpshooter, and he became the national rifle champion in 1940 at the very young age of 30 years old. And he kept this on for a number of years, not only in the long arms, but in the short arm pistol category.
Yes, Carlos did love to go hunting, and he did enjoy being with Marcel during those occasions. Marcel was the youngest boy, and so he didn't have any brothers around. And Carlos, being the intellectual that he was, why they had quite a meetings of the mind and discussion.